Hi everyone and welcome to my review of Charlie Chaplin's The Circus in 1928. So yes, back again of course with another Chaplin review. Yes, if you're expecting the Gold Rush, we'll explain. I was meant to review this, rewatch of course and review this tonight. I put the Blu-ray in, from this set. Only realising then, that the two different versions, are not on the set. On Blu-ray, it's only got, of course, the 42 version, which of course is narrated, and I didn't want to see that. I don't want to see that it's got an edited ending and stuff. So yes, I thought, I'm going to actually have to order the DVD, which of course has the two versions on that of the Gold Rush. Of course, that will come in a week or so, because I did actually sell my doubles and triple Blu-rays and stuff, last year. So I thought, to save all this trouble and of course, I was pumped to see a Chaplin film. I thought, let's just watch The Circus. I have that, and it's not got the different versions to mess about with and stuff. And as long as, I watch the Gold Rush next, and then of course move on to City Lights, do all them in order, then I'll be fine. So here we are with The Circus in this set. And yes, on this side, there's two different halves. And here we are. This is one of the, least popular Chaplins. It is of course, it's still praised regardless of that, because most of his films are praised somewhat. I think, as I've said before on my, Women of Paris review, I do think the rest of his features that I'd seen, which excludes his last two features, of course, are at least great. And for me, this is no exception. It's a film that, yes, it doesn't receive as much attention, but I think that's to be expected because it's not one of his very best films. It's hard to say how to kind of describe a lot of his films, if they're some of his best, because, even if I can say that about so many of the other ones, but then, basically, he's only made like kind of 11 feature films, so you can't really, it's hard to kind of how to describe certain one of these films. I can't call this one of his best, despite being a great film. That's just a testament to how great he was. How much of a perfectionist, of course. This had troubled production, but it's it is basically it's more action heavy, you could say. There's a lot more slapstick, than a lot of his other ones actually. A lot of his films, more his features are more drama, kind of romance and stuff. And of course, The Great Dictator is political as well. You have all these different ones. Monster of Vador is kind of a thriller, very different film, and Limelight is a full-on, really, a full-on drama. You could say a lot more darker, these two, films. But this one, like the Gold Rush maybe, but even more so, is much more kind of focused on the slapstick. The comedy, is constant. The action, you could say, and yes, this one begins quite interestingly with a kind of scene, with Merna playing basically a circus rider, and she's basically, you see her getting treated really badly by her stepfather, I believe it is, who's basically the ringmaster, within this circus, this group of travellers, of course, the circus players, and yes, basically, she doesn't get treated well, of course, and it shows, of course, this film a lot of the kind of negatives and stuff, and how people are treated, in show business and stuff. And yes, it is very moving, in places. But yes, starts off with this. And this, of course, is when you see, after this, the Tramp, once again, played by Charlie Chaplin. Now, here we are, this opening with Chaplin, of course, around about 10 minutes before he actually gets into the circus. And it's a very interesting, it's a great way to kind of start off, his kind of romance. With of course, the circus shown first, and then of course you see the Tramp and his kind of endeavours at first, and then he goes into the circus. I think that's a great way to kind of set the film up, and then of course, yes, you have Chaplin. He gets, of course, wrongly accused of being like a pickpocket, and then basically he gets chased and stuff by the police. You've got some genius stuff already within the first 10 minutes of the film. This is hilarious, and it's just genius. The way it's put together, the way, he kind of course, hides from the police. You've got the kind of the mirror room kind of part, and then, of course, you've got him camouflaging himself, amongst different things. I'm not going to ruin it, but wow, it's so amazing. The acting, of course, by Chaplin here is just so great, and, this is a blend of comedy, of thrilling action. This is actually, seeing this again, I'd only seen it once before in 2017. It's really tense, within this action. It could be he could do this more than he does with his other films, actually. Some of these chase sequences and stuff, and the way he's trying to hide from the police, it's just so good. It's so thrilling. There's tense moments for sure, and of course, the tightrope scenes. Kind of later on in the film, just as much. But this chase scene and all these moments early on are just a great way to start the film, the main bulk of it, and then of course he stumbles upon this circus, and of course he gets offered a job basically, and of course he messes everything up. What the kind of the players are meant to be doing within the circus, and ironically, he entertains the crowd more than, of course, the actual players. And yes, basically, that leads to him, even though he's not doing what he's meant to be doing, him getting, a job, and he's known by the crowd and stuff as the star of the show. Although, of course, the ringmaster at first does not want to tell him, and then, of course, he gets exploited and stuff, and of course you have this wonderful relationship that develops between the this other woman, of course, the stepdaughter of the ringmaster, and it's just a wonderful film from then on. You have a very, very different ending, which I won't ruin, but it's not similar to a lot of the Chaplin endings and stuff. And yeah, I think this film for me is another masterpiece by Chaplin. I think A Woman of Paris, it was a good film, but it was definitely not. Didn't really feel like a Chaplin to me. Of course, he's not in the film, but that's not the only reason. But as the kid was a masterpiece, so is this. And of course, I have not reviewed the Gold Rush, but we'll get to that. Of course, this film, I will say it now. It could be one of the it's certainly one of the worst ones I've seen. Of the feature films. But saying that, it's a masterpiece. They can kind of hint. What I would give pretty much all the Chaplins at least. I think they're amazing. His feature films, and of course, I haven't seen the last two, King of New York and Countess from Hong Kong. I can't comment on them, but I don't expect them to be too great from what I've heard and seen some images and stuff and read up about. Of course, Limelight, that was his final one that's really, really loved, of course. And this is the one that, as I say, the rankings and stuff, put it in the bottom. So would I, but no doubt this is a masterpiece for me. This one, it's just constantly thrilling. That's what it is. As well as being, characters and stuff that I fully connected to. Wonderful, powerful, themes in this film, of course, and just showing, of course, this really wonderful relationship, with the circus rider, of course, and just kind of a romance that develops. But then you've got kind of complexities that happen in the second half of the film, and it's a very, very short film once again. It's only my version was just 71 minutes, so very, very short film. His later ones would be a bit longer, of course. City Lights onwards really would be of decent length. These early ones were a bit shorter, of course, and yes. But it's just a great, great film. I think the way it blends comedy and pathos, like Chaplin, of course, would do throughout his whole career, really. It's just perfect. The action, the set pieces. Now this is absolutely genius stuff here. Genius cinema. You could say it is very comparable to the Gold Rush. This one more than most of his films actually. These two films are a bit more action heavy, they're more kind of stunt heavy and stuff, and this one is just absolutely wonderful. The action in this is just on the edge of your seat, while also being so funny. This is how you do slapstick. The blend of comedy and action in the film is absolutely genius stuff, as I've said, and of course there's many, many moments that you just cannot believe. The scene when the lion is in the cage and he gets in with it, and stuff, and of course the whole ending sequence, within the circus, is something else. This is one of the greatest kind of action pieces in cinema for me. It's just genius stuff. It's so investing, as I say, and of course, just Chaplin in this film once again. No question, an absolute master of the craft. He basically done everything in the film. The music, of course, as well. It's something else. Of course, it's just a wonderful kind of love story as well, but not the usual stuff that Chaplin would do with a lot of his films, and stuff. It's very, very different, but I really cared for this circus rider. She was such a great character, and of course the emotion within her story alone is just something else. Really, really moving film. Not as much as the rest of his works really. I think The Kid, City Lights, Modern Times, Great Dictator, all these Limelight. It's not the kind of the emotional levels of them, certainly not. But it's not meant to be. But it is still, regardless of being a lot more action heavy, a lot more kind of light and stuff. I think it's still very, very emotional at times, and just an overall wonderful film. The way the drama in the film is just so well executed. Of course, the ringmaster is a great kind of, you could say, villain. But he's just a great character. I think really added a lot of dynamics, and stuff. And I just loved, Chaplin in this film once again. The way he can kind of do anything with his face, the emotions that he can bring to the table, is something else. For me, he's the greatest comedy actor of all time, no question whatsoever for me personally. He's in my top 5 actors of all time, let alone being my favourite comedy actor. And for me, he's in my top 5 filmmakers. This is one of his many masterpieces that he made. The way the film is shot and edited is just perfect, in my opinion. The music, of course, is just wonderful. I love the way this relationship developed, of course, and just the way that the film ends as well. I'm not going to ruin, but it's actually, even on the second watch, I kind of like the ending even more. When I watched it back in 2017, amongst all the other ones, I watched quite a lot. Within the space of a week or two, slash rewatched, of course. But yeah, I think maybe I was thinking, maybe I would have preferred it if it done something different with the ending to what turned out in the film. But actually, it just really, in comparison to the other endings of Chaplin's, because they're always something, that are just, for me, some of the best endings ever, especially, Modern Times and City Lights, they are something else. But, I think the ending to this, in its own right, without comparing, of course, is just wonderful. It really is. Very, very powerful ending. And just, this film is entirely, in its entirety, it's just a beautiful film. Really, despite, this could have just been a mess about film under the wings of a different filmmaker. In the Circus, this is risky stuff, for cinema. I think, maybe people don't agree, but the Circus in cinema can sometimes lead to a lot of random occurrences. I've seen in quite a few films. And yeah, just, it can be too much for cinema, and just, not really, if it's a drama and it's, it's set in the circus and stuff, it can be an odd mix, let's face it. But this one does not, go off tone, and it's always really, really focused, so focused on these characters. Of course, you get to know some of the other side characters in the circus as well. The old clown, he is great, and of course the actor is in a lot of Chaplin works. It's just brilliant stuff. All the side characters are also great, and there's so many memorable moments in this film. And the recurring gags. This is the thing. It's so consistent. It's just gags that kind of follow throughout the entire film, and of course the way it comes together, as I say, the ending, it's just wonderful stuff. And it's very, very different. So I have no flaws whatsoever with the picture. This is a wonderful film. Of course, if you haven't seen the film, I really think it is a great one. I do think it's a masterpiece. And yes, I would highly, highly recommend it. Just a wonderful film, of course. And yes, this whole half, of course, is just wonderful. Aside from Woman in Paris, it's not a great film for me. But this whole set, this is one of my most cherished items, because there are so many of these films are some of my favourites. And this one, well, not in my top 100 or anything. It really is among my favourites. This is a perfect comedy, a perfect kind of action film, with so many great set pieces. The way this film flows, it really has a wonderful flow, and it does, despite being this really, really action kind of based film and stuff, and more so than most of the other Chaplin films, it really is actually a one where the narrative is so great. The development of the characters, the kind of the twists and turns, that happens, quite quickly actually, in the kind of the middle act of the film, and just the relationships that develop over the film, and really just in every sense, this is a masterpiece for me, and of course I'd have to give it full marks, and it doesn't get into my plus tiers. Not this one. It's not like the kid. It doesn't get into the plus tiers, but it does get 100%. This film for me, no doubt a masterpiece. Is it my least favorite Chaplin that I've seen? No, of course, A Woman of Paris. But apart from that, maybe not even so. But it's definitely down the bottom. Near the bottom of the feature films. But then I call it a masterpiece. There, of course, is the kind of hints you can piece together. What I would give most of the Chaplins at least. Full marks, of course. Because if I'm giving this 100, this guy not even got into his the bulk of his best films yet, but already two films. The Kid and this gets full marks, and just wonderful filmmaker, of course, in my top 5. Certainly without Chaplin, without going through his films and certainly his best works, my life would be a lot worse off. And so many people, of course, love Chaplin, and he's just a wonderful filmmaker. Who was really just a genius. And his films are so easy to kind of love. But the way they are made, he's just a master of the craft, of course, and every kind of area as well. The way he composed music, just the way he kind of shot his films is such an auteur. But of course, as well, acting in the films, and just producing one of the most iconic, kind of relatable characters, the tramp, this persona, and of course the tramp in this film, once again, is someone that you just feel so much for. He's a lovable character, and a bumbling character, of course, and just, it's just, yes, he sometimes, the tramp is in a lot of his films in many different ways, but he's always so entertaining, and just so kind of sympathetic, and stuff, and someone you root for, just wonderful stuff, simplicity at times, but genius stuff. Chaplin really reached his best films, yet to come, of course, on this channel reviewed. Really reached almost the pinnacle of cinema for me. We'll get to that particular film. But then again, even the second, third, and fourth films, the best, I think, are some of the very, very finest films in cinema. This one is a masterpiece. Not one of his best films, but I think highly recommend it. I absolutely adore this film. Even better on the rewatch. The ending as well grew me even more. And I really recommend this film. It's just wonderful, and it's so entertaining. A great little film, because it is very, very short. But despite that, I got fully invested in these characters and stuff. And yeah, just a great, great film. Absolutely love this one. So yes, once again, Chaplin. Just wonderful stuff here. And yes, thanks for watching my review. There will be, of course, next up will be the Gold Rush. In terms of the features, I think hopefully it comes within a week or two. Then I'll watch that. And then, of course, City Lights, will be next, and that will be a special review. That will, wow, that film. But yes, this film also wonderful, and highly, highly recommend it, of course. Yes, The Circus. Thanks for watching my review.